Welcome to the Legal Merry-Go-Round.
Welcome back to the Legal Merry-Go-Round with attorney Paul Samakow, a longtime personal injury lawyer dedicated to helping injured people throughout the D.C. Metro, Northern Virginia, and suburban Maryland areas to get treated fairly after an accident. My name is Leanne Lyon, and today we are talking about pain and suffering. It's real, it's personal, and it's different for everyone, but insurance companies treat it like a math problem. So let's break down what people should know. Thanks for being here, Paul.
So happy to be here.
Paul, to start with, could you explain what the legal terms of pain and suffering really mean in everyday terms?
It's a phrase that a lot of people are familiar with: pain and suffering, physical pain, emotional pain, psychological pain, and suffering. You know, when I discuss this with clients, I don't start off with the conversation pain and suffering. I like to start off with disruption of life. Everybody understands that. Yeah, disruption of life. And there are so many adjectives. Go to the internet and type in pain and suffering adjectives, and you'll get a list: aggravation, inconvenience, upset, nervous. I mean, and I don't want to just keep going, but when we look at a claim to determine the appropriate amount of compensation, there's primarily three things. There's medical bills that have to be paid, lost income or lost wages that have to be paid, and that third category. Now, I'll get to that. That's the pain and suffering. But the first two are easy calculations for the most part. Medical bills are $610.73. That's what should be paid. Lost wages, I make $1,000 a day. I miss 5 days. That's 5,000. Yeah, that'll be a good job, wouldn't it? Okay. So, but pain and suffering, how much is that worth? Well, I am a beautiful 25-year-old woman with a modeling job. I walk the runways and I have photographers coming, and I'm in pictures in magazines. And all of a sudden, I've got this horrendous scar on my face. How much is that worth? It's ruined my life. It's ruined my professional career, because even the best plastic surgeon in the world isn't going to be able to fix that. Now, not to say that to me it has any less value if I am, a 75-year-old woman who is married and has, bags under her eyes, and and let's just say she's not as physically appealing to the general population, most of the general population, as that younger model. Okay, I mean, again, I don't mean to be disrespectful or sound like a jerk and say that the 70-something-year-old woman doesn't suffer as much as the younger one, but from an economic standpoint, we can say clearly maybe she doesn't. But we have to understand that the suffering is as to you, as to the person suffering. What is their suffering? So that I couldn't go and do this, maybe who cares, but someone else wanted to do that and it's really upsetting to them, we have to pay them for the amount of upset to them. Suffering, inconvenience, the value of my time, disruption. I mean, these are concepts that there is no absolute answer. We've all made money and paid taxes, right? Well, here, Mr. Accountant, here's all of my receipts. And you take that to 10 different accountants, and you're going to get 10 different answers as to how much money you owe to pay in taxes. And it's the same with a calculation and a compensation for suffering. It is not a formula. It is based on many, many, many factors that take into consideration how the individual who is injured has suffered because of what happened. That's the best answer I can give to a law school class or to a budding new lawyer looking to figure that out.
So, Paul, if my hands were injured and fine motor skills become a struggle, like painting miniatures, would that factor into pain and suffering?
Absolutely, right. That's a great example. I am a piano player, and my hands got mangled. I get more money than someone who uses their hands, but they don't use their hands for a living, and they don't get joy from the use of their hands making beautiful music. I mean, you can go down that rabbit hole and think of 100 things that have to do with the value of mangled hands for a piano player. He's the guy who, goes to church every Sunday and plays the organ, and he gets such joy out of that because afterwards everybody comes over and pats him on the back. Great job! Oh, I love the way you played. Oh, that one little note that you hit, you know. And he's the one that, for the holidays and birthdays and anniversaries, and he's the one at the house, and everybody comes over to his house and he's playing and everybody's singing, and what joy he has from that. So it's not just about that he plays, professionally. I mean, again, these are all the things that go into an understanding of the value of suffering.
Every person experiences pain differently. So, how do you help someone understand that their unique experience still fits within a legal system that tries to generalize it?
Well, proof is, if you're on a jury and you're hearing this, proof is what you believe. I can tell you 10 things and you might believe 8 of them. But we have found over the years that the testimony of your friends and your coworkers is highly, highly, highly credible because they have no dog in the fight. You bring your spouse in, okay, we can understand they might be a little biased and might want to exaggerate about what they saw and what they heard and how you suffered and how you were struggling. And okay, I mean that's still valuable testimony. But when um, when your coworker comes in and says, George here was one of the fastest guys. When the assignment was given to him, he did it in 20 minutes, and everybody else it took him an hour. And he got up out of his chair and he was so happy. He brought it right over to the boss, and he had pep in his step. And after this accident, you just see him sitting at his desk and his head is down and he's breathing heavy and the assignment is there, and he looks around to see if anybody's watching him, and it's really taking him like way, way longer than it used to get it done. And then when he brought it over, the boss looked at him and said, "This is really unusual." He says, "You made 4 mistakes. You've never made mistakes any longer." And you could see the embarrassment on his face. That kind of testimony is compelling. It doesn't mean he's getting more than $1 million more. But if you've got 5 different things like that, brought up to the attention of a jury or a judge who's going to make a decision on compensation, that's pretty credible. That can be very, very compelling.
What kind of daily limitations, like sleep problems, mobility issues, or emotional strain, tend to carry the most weight when evaluating pain and suffering?
Fantastic question. Yes, there are absolute categories that carry more weight in terms of what they should bring in compensation. Inability to work is one of the highest ones because everything is a dollar. It's unfortunate. Um, Household chores is another one. Um, you know, the person at the home responsible for taking care of the children is another one. I mean, there's a lot of house dads these days. Good for you, right? But now I found it very hard to bring little Johnny to the changing table and change his diaper. It's very, very difficult. I had to hire a nurse for 3 weeks to come and do that. That cost me money, and it was upsetting that I couldn't be the one, playing playing dad for him in that fashion. Um, again, the household chores, gardening, sweeping, and vacuuming. I mean, raise your hand. You want to sweep and vacuum? But you know what? There is an intrinsic joy in having a beautiful, clean home. There is, and that you couldn't do that, and it's upsetting. And your spouse comes home, and he or she looking around, and there's disappointment, and there's silent, conversation that's like, how come you didn't make the bed? It's like, I like a nice, tidy bed when I get into it, every night. Yeah, so definitely. um, driving. I mean, who likes to be sitting on the highway in bumper to bumper traffic? Blow my brains out. I've told many people when I have that situation that my next vehicle is either going to be a donkey or a helicopter. I mean, it's aggravating, but you know, you need to take grandma to the store to help her go shopping because that's what you do once a week, and now you can't do that. Or you need the car to take, little Sally to soccer practice, but you can't do that. So you got to pick up the phone and call one of the other parents and ask if they can, pick her up for a couple of weeks, and then you'll, return the favor when you get back into the swing of things. Yeah. So, you know, um, the mental and the psychological, it all weighs in activities. I get up, the first thing I do is the New York Times crossword puzzle, but my ability to concentrate has been significantly adversely affected. And not only can I do the crossword puzzle now, but I got the newspaper and I have a hard time even reading it. So I have to turn on the TV and they're talking about what happened in the news, and it's like I got to turn it off. And so I feel out of touch. I mean, there's 50 categories. Yes, there are some that weigh more. Absolutely.
How do insurance companies try to shrink the value of pain and suffering, especially when injuries aren't immediately visible on a scan or an x ray?
If I could have a penny, just a penny, for every time I've heard an insurance claims adjuster say, it's no big deal, I could have retired a long time ago. Just a penny. Just one time, every time I hear that, their answer is it's no big deal. Okay, so what that they couldn't do the crossword puzzle? So what that they couldn't carpool the kid? I mean, there's no defensible answer for it, but their job is to depress it, to minimize it. And so, when you look at an alternate compensation system of workers' compensation, there are actually charts that detail the value of things, and these will be used as an analogy in the other segment of the world of compensation for what's called liability for like a car accident or when someone falls down in the store when there was water that should have been mopped up. Um, yeah, I mean, so it's a constant battle with insurance claims adjusters who do everything they can and say anything they can, including lie, to minimize the value. I mean, I almost went the next step once to try to get an insurance claims adjuster fired, but I didn't have my 110% heart in it, but I did complain. I was on the phone with an insurance claims adjuster who offered to me that they weren't going to give that she wasn't going to give me enough, more money on my case because my client was fat. I was like, "Are you kidding me? Did you really just say that?" Well, she's highly overweight and she must have lots of other medical problems that we didn't cause. And she's making it sound like this accident caused everything. No, that's not what's going on here. And it's like I was so angry. I told her I'd call her back. And I hung up the phone on her and I let myself calm down. And the next day I picked up the phone and called her manager and told her manager about it. I said, the only thing I'm not going to say to you is that I want that woman fired. I said, but I want her reprimanded. I said, and I want her to take, some kind of a class on, skills for proper communication. So yeah, I mean, insurance people are, I've met many of them. I've had drinks with many of them. I've socialized with many of them, and out of their role as insurance claims adjusters, they can be very nice people and they can be, very caring individuals. But when they put on that hat, I liken them to the devil.
Sometimes people downplay their symptoms because they don't want to seem like they're complaining. How can that affect the accuracy of their claim?
It does. It does. If I've got you saying 10 times that you're okay and it doesn't hurt that much, well, why am I going to compensate you? if the opposite is true. You know, now isn't now isn't the time to be understated, and it's also not the time to exaggerate. I mean, a bee sting, okay, it's not the end of the world. A fractured leg, that's a little bit different. So conversation from the injured person should be appropriate and honest and forthcoming. Um, and oftentimes people don't understand what they should be saying. So again, that's why you need an attorney. I mean, it's just an attorney knows all the things to say and all the things to point out most of the time, and it comes from interviewing and talking to the client. I'm of that old school legal process where I like to talk to my clients extensively and just keep asking them questions and learn about them and how things have affected them negatively so I can then present the best case to the insurance company. Most of the time, people would never say that, the guy with that plays the piano or the organ at church, he would never even bring that up because he wouldn't think to. But bringing it up has value.
Documentation often focuses on medical treatment, not quality of life. What types of information or examples help paint a clearer picture of what somebody is actually going through?
Don't you love today's technology? We go back and forth with our phones with little apps we put on there that are recording our voice, or and you have your notepad that you can pick up and you write down a diary, or you can go on your computer and type it in. Just I tell my clients I make them all keep diaries and or notes, and then they send them to me, and I can pick and choose what I like to use out of it. And often I use most of it because it's real, it's true. But yeah, I mean, um, the insurance world. I mean, this is going to sound almost ridiculous, but if it's not documented, it didn't happen. And the ridiculous discussion that I follow from that is you have to prove you were born or you don't exist. Now that's ridiculous, of course. I mean, here I am, I'm alive, but I mean, it is really that ridiculous. If it's not documented, if it's not written down, didn't happen.
And as we wrap up today's episode, for somebody listening who feels like the insurance company is not respecting the impact this injury has had on their daily life, what's the one thing you want them to understand moving forward?
To take care of themselves, just to be honest, to document, to ask questions, to be their best advocate. Well, you asked for one thing, and I'm going on and on, aren't I? Yeah, but it is. And again, I mean, again, I do this podcast because I want to help people who are listening. It is not about if you've been hurt and you have a bee sting, call me and then I'm going to help you and I'm going to make money. That's not the issue for me. I'm well past that in my life. I've made money, I've done well. I can take my grandkids to the movies next week. I mean, that's not it for me. For me, it's just if you are listening, is something I'm saying here helping you? Just one person with one thing, then I feel great. But I then segue into don't try and do heart surgery on yourself. If you're not a mechanic, don't try and fix your car. You don't know what type of fluid you should put in where in that place under the hood. If you don't know, you don't know. And so that leads to go get a lawyer. If it's not me, it's okay. Get a lawyer. Get somebody who knows what they're doing who can help you. And I get phone calls every single day. My staff gets phone calls every single day from individuals who have been injured and want our help. And we don't take every case because some of these cases, there's really not that big of an injury. And I make the joke, I'm not going to represent you if it's just a bee sting, you know? I mean, unless the bee sting caused a heart attack, God forbid. But, I mean, the point is, if it's any kind of an injury that is requiring a medical visit and follow up, and it's problematic for you in your life and your activities of what you can do, what you can't do, it doesn't hurt to talk to an attorney. They don't charge for a consultation. I call them strategy sessions. I want to hear what you have to say. I'm not touting myself. I mean, but the point is, yeah, any kind of a situation that is beyond your knowledge and your scope and your experience, get somebody who understands it and talk to them. And those people, those are lawyers.
Well, that's it for today's episode of the Legal Merry-Go-Round with attorney Paul Samakow. If you've been injured and you're looking for clear answers, Paul and his team are here to help you navigate the stress, the paperwork, and the insurance company so you can focus on getting better. To learn more or schedule a free strategy session, visit samakowlaw.com and remember to like, subscribe, and share the show so more people can get the guidance they need after an accident. Thank you, Paul.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.